It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wise discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Hello there, South Mississippi, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. We're going to take a look at the forecast into the upcoming weekend. It will be breezier, and there will be some rain chances. Some of the breezy wind could cause minor coastal flooding for some places. One of those places is Hancock County. Here's a live view of the coast on Hancock County, and this is near the Silver Slipper Casino. High tide is moving in right now as we speak during the 7 o'clock hour on Friday morning. And that tide could come in a little higher than usual, so there might be some flooding. I can dial into the camera controls and see if I can get the camera to move a little bit closer in. There we go. And what we find actually could already be the signs of some of the beginnings of coastal flooding. You see the tide waters are coming in like this, but then we get them to roll through, and sometimes it finds a little spot through some of the berms on the beach, and it eventually could get closer to the road that leads to and from that business. So we'll just keep that in mind that I don't think with this particular setup that we're going to see roads getting closed. Certainly not today, but as we get into the weekend, we're going to see this pattern repeat. You know, today, the coastal flooding and the high tide, it gets to about here. But maybe tomorrow, the high tide gets to about here. And maybe Sunday, the high tide gets to about here. So each day as we get deeper into the weekend, that could increase. When is high tide? For Hancock County and a place like Bay St. Louis, it's at 8 or 9 o'clock this morning. So if there will be any flooding at all, it will be around this time of day in the morning. When we get to a low tide this evening, any impacts probably will go away because there's about a 1.5 foot range between those two tides, between this morning's high tide and this evening's low tide. And when these tides come in higher than usual, they're only going to be around a foot or two higher than usual. So the low tide will kind of erase any of those impacts tonight. But then they'll come back again during tomorrow morning's high tide, and then they'll be erased again by tomorrow evening's low tide, and rinse and repeat as we go to Sunday. Speaking of the coastal waters, I think it's worth mentioning, if you have boating plans, not looking too good. Could be rough in the Mississippi Sound. Today there's already a small craft advisory, and that will go through the weekend. Seas could go up to 5 feet, the winds up to 20 knots from the east. And that wind from the east is the reason why that coastal flood advisory is really only for Hancock County. You don't see it for Harrison County. You don't see it for Jackson County. If it were a wind from the south, like this, if it were a wind from the south, we'd see most of our counties under that. We'd see Harrison County under a flood advisory. We'd see Jackson County, at least part of their county, underneath the coastal flood advisory. But the winds are not from the south. They're coming in from the east. So for most of our coast, this is not an impact. But as you can see, with the wind coming from the east, it does literally hit directly and perpendicular into the Hancock County coast. And so that's why when we were just showing you that camera located right about here at the Silver Slipper Casino, they would be one of those spots that will be more vulnerable to this type of east wind that causes above normal tides. So, and frankly, much of Hancock County's coastline, even the part of the coastline that is by the bay, this is also an east-facing shore. So, might have some places near Bay St. Louis that deal with that too. Might have some places near Waveland that deal with that too. And like we just showed you near the Silver Slipper Casino, you might also deal with that as well. You can literally see those winds. If I make this bigger on your screen, you can see the winds coming in from the east. All of those little lines, they're all rolling in and rolling toward the Hancock County coast. Those are the winds. Now, coastal flood advisory is something that we see multiple times a year. It is the least impactful type of coastal flooding. So it's very minor, and for many places, you won't even notice this is happening. If you are more than 10 blocks from the beach, you can ignore this alert. But if you are within a couple of blocks, city blocks, street blocks of the beach, of the coast, then this might be something that is relevant to you. It causes minor flooding of lots, parks, and roads. With this limited amount of flood risk, there might not be any road closures at all. If there are, they would be very isolated and very limited. But even if there's one, that could impact your traveling. If you are traveling along the immediate shoreline of Hancock County, along the immediate shoreline in places near Bay St. Louis and Waveland, you don't want to allow a few extra travel minutes in case you run into some issues. And if you find some barricades blocking the roads, remember those are put there for your protection. So it's best to not drive around them, as you may encounter water over the road, and you might find yourself into a travel trouble. If you have any flood-prone property, of course, always a good idea to protect that. So we covered the coastal flooding first because that's frankly our only alert for land areas as we go into the next 3 days. It's breezy, but it's not like a strong high wind that has triggered a wind advisory. We don't have one of those. So yeah, it'll be breezy, but at this time, there is no wind alert for our coast. We'll see winds from the east up to 15, maybe up to 20 miles per hour, and some of the gusts could eventually go higher than that at any point today, at any point tomorrow, at any point Sunday. And if you're offshore, the wind is worse, but over land, not enough to trigger any alerts. As far as rain chances are concerned, we're expecting many rain-free hours today for Friday. But going into the weekend, the rain chance is gradually going to increase. If you have some plans to be out and about for Friday and Saturday, the good news is that we don't find much rain in the local area. Sunday, there will be some better rain chances, so we'll probably see a few rain showers, maybe even a thunderstorm or two on Sunday. I know, of course, we got some big events in the area this weekend, one of them being Cruising the Coast. So we are hopeful that the rain won't create this major washout situation, and maybe it rains a little bit and then it stops. So that's what it looks like right now. It won't be an all-day thing, but instead it will be when it rains during some hours of Sunday, and then it stops raining for some hours of Sunday. How much rain are we talking about? Well, it depends on which computer model you look at. The one that we're taking a look at right now, the GRAF model, is showing most areas with up to an inch of rain. But there might be a few spots that pick up even higher totals. 1 to 3 inches of rain, maybe in parts of Gulfport, Biloxi, maybe in parts of Goshen, Pascagoula, we'll see. Again, the majority of this is not expected to take place today, not expected to take place on Saturday, but instead, as we go to Sunday, you can see that map showing Sunday has our best rain potential over the next 3 days. We can walk you through that with the Futurecast here. Here's a look at the Futurecast for Friday. It just shows partly to mostly cloudy skies today, many rain-free hours. So if you have plans to be out and about for Friday, good news, we're not expecting much rain today to get in your way. I mean, we could use the rain. We are in a severe drought in parts of South Mississippi, but you don't see much showing up there. Now Saturday, the rain chance is slightly higher, but even then, our computer modeling really not showing a whole lot there. So maybe we're just going to see like a little rain sprinkle at times, not much. Now Sunday, get your umbrellas ready, get your rain jackets ready. We are expecting to see some of those showers and maybe even a few thunderstorms moving in from the Gulf. And you can see some of the rain could be heavy at times. That's what those yellow and orange colors mean. And you can see some of those impacting parts of Gulfport, parts of Biloxi, Ocean Springs, Gulf Park Estates, Goshen, Pascagoula at times on Sunday morning. It's not going to rain everywhere. You have people on the coast saying, oh my goodness, it's a rainy Sunday. And people in Wiggins saying, are you kidding me? It's dry. This is why a rain chance can't be that high on Sunday, because there's going to be places that see rain, and there might be places that don't get that much. And even those places that do get some rain on Sunday morning, like along the coast, according to this model, guess what? You go through time, and maybe you catch a break. Okay, it was raining around 9, 10, 11 in the morning, but look at the 3, 4, and 5 in the afternoon. Not much. So that's what we're talking about over the weekend. While there are some chances for scattered showers and thunderstorms, it might not be an all-day type thing. Now, like we said, those amounts could be high in some isolated spots, 2 to 3 inches of rain maybe. It does not have to be in Gulfport like this model shows. It can be in any one spot. The model is not going to be good enough to nail the exact location 3 days in the future. But just understand, in general, most areas picking up to about 1 inch of rain. That's what most of those numbers you're looking at are. Most of those numbers are not higher than 1 inch. And then a few of them get into that greater than 1 inch range. I will say it is a close call, though, because while we on the Mississippi coast will be dealing with perhaps 1 to 3 inches of rain, our neighbors just to the south, that is fewer than 100 miles to the south of our Mississippi coast, fewer than 100 miles away, we are looking at more than 5 or 6 inches of rain in coastal Louisiana. That's where most of the rain this weekend will be, out in the Gulf. But the coast, the tip of Louisiana, pokes further out into the Gulf than our Mississippi coast, so they are poked further out into where the majority of the rain is, and that's how they could get those extreme amounts. So it's looking like a major significant flood washout for Buras, Louisiana over the weekend, but on the Mississippi coast, the risk of flooding is low from rain. It's actually not 0. We do have a level 1 out of 4 on Sunday, but usually when you have that low of a level, most areas come out okay. So, like I said, the rain, good when you're in a drought, bad when you have outdoor events you don't want to get rained on. So that's going to be what we watch. And again, that uncertainty with the exact placement of the rain, I do caution you on Sunday because it will be a very close call between our 1 to 3 inches of rain and Louisiana's, extreme amount of more than 4 or 5 and less than 100 miles difference. If the model is wrong by 50 to 100 miles, then that can make a big difference in how things actually go for us. And then that was just one model, by the way. If I show you multiple computer models, let's pull up all 4 of these, you get different scenarios, right? The one that we just looked at was the bottom right. We looked at the GRAF that showed that, 2-inch rain near Gulfport and around 1 inch for most places. And I think it's a pretty good middle ground out of our 4 different scenarios. The Euro, the NAM, the graph, the GRAF, they're all about the same. Then you got this other one that's the outlier, the GFS model, which completely clobbers us with more than 3 or 4 inches of rain. I hope this one is wrong. I mean, it would be good for the drought, but terrible for weekend events if the GFS winds up being the one that's right. Right now, it looks like it is not the most likely scenario since you got the majority of the scenarios not showing this type of washout. So hopefully that's something that we don't have to worry about as we go to the weekend. I will say, as we go into the upcoming week, next week, we can't completely get rid of the rain chances. They do hold at about 30% next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So for cruising the coast next week, just understand that no day has a 0% rain chance based on the current information. But one thing that might be a plus, well, 2 things. First of all, we get those winds to stop being as breezy, so you won't have to worry about it messing up. Some people dress up for cruising, wearing certain types of outfits. You won't have to worry about it being extremely breezy next week as the winds kind of come down a little bit, although they will still be from the east. And another thing is that you don't have to worry about it being overly hot. Now, the temperature might tick up a little bit. We are looking at upper 80s on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. But there are signs, if you check the 10-day forecast, that maybe we're about to see a trend into some fall stuff. I saw this on yesterday's 10-day, but I didn't want to show it because I wanted to see it for 2 days in a row. And now that I've seen it for 2 days in a row, it makes me a little more confident that maybe what I'm about to show you might actually come to fruition. And this will be the last thing we show before the end of this broadcast. So let's go to the 10-day forecast. And if you have been waiting for fall-like conditions, get excited because what you're about to see is a trend toward fall weather by the middle of October. Surprise, surprise. I mean, again, this month I told you, you're more likely than not going to wind up using that car heater before Halloween is done. And I think places like Wiggins, it's coming for you by next weekend. Look at this on your 10-day forecast. We are seeing multiple mornings down into the lower 60s next Saturday, the 11th. next Sunday the 12th. So you could have a cool start, if not a downright chilly start. I mean 60, that means some spots might be 59, 58 on next Sunday morning. Now again, this is still pretty far into the future, so it might not stay locked in. It might change as we get closer into that time frame. But for now, and this is the second day in a row that I've seen this, it is showing a trend towards some cooler mornings. The afternoons don't really turn terribly cool, but at least the mornings turn cooler because probably the air gets drier and there's lower humidity. You can also see that trend on the coast, even for places like Biloxi Ocean Springs, for places like Pass Christian, Bay St. Louis, places south of I-10. Maybe middle 60s next Saturday morning, the 11th, maybe lower 60s next Sunday morning, the 12th. So something to look forward to if you have been, getting out of sorts because you haven't had that fall feel. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of that toward next weekend. The weekend that ends cruising the coast could feature some cooler, if not almost chilly mornings for parts of South Mississippi. Well, that'll do it for this Friday edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. See you around.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.